Hi stars, welcome back. In this video I'm going to talk to you about the Dispositor Tree, your backstory to your chart. This is what I would call for intermediate astrologers. You have to understand a little bit about essential dignities, and we're going to go over the 5 structures in a tree. We're going to go over the 3 positions planets can have in a tree, and we're going to consider other factors such as linking and connections and what they really mean. So when you get through this video, you should be able to draw your very own Dispositor Tree and get higher insights, or dare I say deeper insights, into your chart from the actual design and shape of the Dispositor Tree. What I like about astrology in many ways is the actual pattern and the symbology and the shape of the chart. So when you're looking at a birth chart, you can see the shapes that the aspects are making and the colors of the planets, and you've got different colors for your signs, and it's a visual representation of your chart. And this in itself is the actual art piece that is your chart. To me, is very, very interesting. And when I discovered Dispositor Trees, this was like a whole new window opened up into astrological understanding, because the actual shape of the tree that you get from your unique birth chart is different to everybody else's, and you can actually meditate upon the actual image you have, the drawing you will create for your Dispositor Tree, and give some thought to what these connections may mean. It's something that you would create and ponder about over the next few days and decide, well, I wonder what this link really means. How can I see this expressed in my chart? So it's a great thing to have. It's another way of looking at charts. It's what I'm calling the backstory, because there are associations and links going on behind the scenes that are not clear in the aspects. They're not necessarily shown there whatsoever. So you may have 2 planets, say you've got the Moon and Pluto working together for you, and you didn't really realize it. So that in itself is very interesting. Also, the Dispositor Tree will highlight your top planets, your prominent planets in your life, and those are the ones that you want to focus on first when you first start out to try and interpret your chart and try to thoroughly understand what these top planets are saying in your life. So let's get started. Dispositor Trees, your chart's backstory. So when we are looking at Dispositor Trees, we're going to be using traditional rulerships. That is the 7 visible planets. So here we need to be aware that the Sun rules Leo, the Moon rules Cancer, Mercury rules both Gemini and Virgo, Venus rules Taurus and Libra, Mars rules Aries and Scorpio, Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces, and Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius. I don't use the modern rulers when I'm doing Dispositor Trees. Some people do, but I don't. And when you're starting out doing these Dispositor Trees, I think it's best you don't do it. So you're going to use the traditional rulerships of the 7 visible planets, and they will be ruling any of the planets that are actually in their signs. So let's have a look at drawing some links, because we're going to be drawing a diagram. A Dispositor Tree is a diagram. So if a planet is in another planet's sign, which is very often the case, you would draw links going downwards. So for example, any planet in Gemini or in Virgo will be disposed by Mercury, and you put Mercury on the top line and you draw the arrows going down to the planets in Mercury's signs. So generally, that's how we're going to be doing it, that the planet that will be on the top, and it will point down to other planets. Say you've got the Sun in Gemini, maybe you've got the Moon in Virgo, and you would put those down below. And you would do that for all the planets. And then when we're drawing links too, if you happen to have 2 planets which are a mutual reception, you would then draw them both on the same line. So in this example, we have Mars is in Capricorn and Saturn is in Scorpio. So Capricorn is ruled by Saturn and Scorpio is ruled by Mars. So now you have them on the same line, so they have equal status. This will be on a top line, and you would draw a double-headed arrow joining the 2 planets in mutual reception. So they would also be on the top line, and they have equal status. And then the third way of drawing links is if you have 3 or more planets which form a chain. And this can sometimes be difficult to spot, but you've just got to work it all out. So in this little example we have here, I've got the Venus is in Cancer, so the Moon disposes Venus. So then we look at the Moon and we find that the Moon is in Aries. And then we say, well, which planet rules Aries? Well, Mars rules Aries, and Mars happens to be in Sagittarius. Then you say, well, which planet rules Sagittarius? And oh, it's Jupiter. And oh, look, Jupiter's in Taurus. So Venus will dispose Jupiter in Taurus. So you have this circular dispositorship. It's known as the chain, but you'll come to know it as it's a circular dispositorship chain, and you can have it with 3 or more planets that form a big chain like this. And when planets form a chain, they also go on the same line at the top, and they have equal status at this point. So you would line them all up and then join the chain across. So there's not a hierarchical arrow system here. They're all on the top line. So that's what you need to know about drawing those links. So there are 3 positions in a dispositor tree that a planet may have. It is the top planet. It can be a top planet, it can be a middle planet, or it can be a bottom planet. And it depends where the planet is in the tree, which status it has. So it'll either be top, middle, or bottom. And dispositor trees are drawn in layers generally. We have the top layers, and then we have middle layers, and then we have bottom layers. So you would have, when you're starting out drawing the tree, you don't know how many layers there's going to be until you've drawn the tree. And you would have a top layer and some middle layers, and then maybe a bottom layer. So this is what we're going to be doing. So in your sketchbook, you're going to be looking at, maybe when you're drawing this out to start with your first attempt at drawing a dispositor tree, it might be a bit messy, but you want to lay it out in this kind of structure. So you would put top planets on the top line, you would put middle planets, which are always in yellow, below. There may be some more planets below, and then you would, that is the green planets there would be the bottom planets. They are the last planets in the chain. And you could have other planets forming trees coming through where you've got a combination of top planets in red, middle planets in yellow, and bottom planets in green. And your tree could be formed in any structure. This combination of how these planets are going to be drawn on the tree will come from your chart. So my chart will be different to your chart, and your chart will be different to the next guy's chart in general. So if someone was born on the same day as you, they will have the same tree, but as the moon moves off, it will move into a different sign. So most people have different trees to everybody else. And certainly the charts you're going to do of your family and friends, they will have different structures. So let's just take a closer look at what these positions mean. When you have top planets, these can only be the visible planets. And some top planet keywords would be leads, takes, drives, extroverted, masculine, and positive. These are keywords that can be associated with whatever planets you have in the top positions. And your top planet affinities are to do with, if you know something about astrology, which by now you generally would, because this really is intermediate stuff, you know about the cardinal mode. They have affinities with that. Top planets have affinities with the angular houses, with the midheaven, the fire element. And these are the main affinities that top planets have. Then if we look at the top planet energy, it is expressed through taking action, beginnings, the future, and being available. So any planet on the top row of your dispositor tree will have its energy expressed this way, regardless of what the planet is. So let's have a look at middle planets. So these are our yellow planets here. This is, again, it's only the visible planets will be middle planets. And so a middle planet must have a planet above and a planet below in the chain. So every yellow planet has a red one above and a green or a yellow one below. And then we do have something called a gateway planet, which is a planet that actually is a middle planet, but it has 3 or more planets below it, because the energy that is being that goes down from the dispositor tree via the arrows is being sourced back up towards that top planet. So these green planets at the bottom are like your little soldiers, and the yellow planet's like your little lieutenant, and then your commanding planet would be the top one. And these energies, resources, and abilities will be taken up the chain to the red planet, but the gateway planet will be the sun. So this might be the person or the planet who is encouraging or gathering the information from the 3 planets below, or it could be a planet that is difficult and is blocking your ability to access the meaning of those 3 green planets. So that is a gateway planet. You don't see them in every tree, but they certainly do appear. So your middle planet keywords does work, gives and takes. They are a conduit for energy. They clearly link things together, connect and join meanings of planets because they are part of the chain, and it is a neutral position to be in. And some of your middle planet affinities are to do with the fixed mode, the succedent houses, the element of air, the nodes, and the 1st, 7th house axis, because they are part of the bigger picture. A middle planet is definitely part of the bigger picture. It's taking information from below to above, and it's part of the main thing about what's going on in your chart. And the flow between those 2 planets will be shown through those chains. So your middle planet's energy is generally expressed as being acted through within, and it has to do with the present. This is your middle planet energy. Then we have the bottom planet. So these are the green ones. So any planet can be a bottom planet. They have planets above only. They do not have planets below. So your bottom planet keywords are supports, serves, gives, introverted, accepts, and feminine, negative polarity or passive polarity. So these are the planets right at the bottom of the pile, right at the bottom of your tree, that are supporting and serving and giving up their energy up the chain of command to the top. And what really happens is that if you're not paying attention, these bottom planets, you're not accessing them in your life, because your focus will be on your top planets, your red planets, those at the top who are dominating your dispositor tree. And the skill of an astrologer would be to perhaps show that client, or if it's your tree, to explore why are you not tapping into those bottom planets. Say you've got the moon and Venus and Mars down there, you need to be considering why are you not tapping into this energy, and it's because you're focusing more on your top and more demanding planets that are higher up the tree. But you still have these features in your chart, in your tree, and the skill will be to give some thought to it and say, well, how can I incorporate these energies better into my life? So some bottom planet affinities are to do with, astrologically, are to do with the mutable mode, the cadent houses, the imum coli, the water element, and the northern hemisphere. So these are generally the affinities. So if you understand what mutable, cadent, icy, water, and the north is all about in astrology, this is the feel of the bottom planets. And the bottom planet's energy is expressed through being acted upon. These are really passive planets in your chart. It's to do with endings, the past, and waiting to be asked. So it's like these planets are just sitting there, maybe on your shelf in your life, and you're just not using them. And when you draw the tree, you can see that you could tap better into some of the planetary energies. Right, so let's look at 3 steps to drawing a dispositor tree. Where do you start? First of all, you want to find any planets in rulership. They will go on the top line. If you have them, write them up there. If not, move on. Then you want to find any planets in mutual reception. They too will be top line planets. And then from there, you want to find any planets in a chain. So if you don't have anything in rulership and you don't have a mutual reception, start with your sun, see what sign is this in, which planet rules this sign, and go to that planet and say, oh, here's Saturn. Which sign is it in? Which planet rules that? And you follow the chain round so you can pick up the chain and then draw it. So to draw the dispositor tree, this is really what I'm saying. Step 1, You're going to find any planets in rulership. So the Sun in Leo, the Moon in Cancer, Mars in Aries, any of those planets that are in their own sign are top line important planets, and they go at the top on the top level. So we're going to be looking at the, for our example chart today is going to be the chart for Andy Warhol, the artist, and we're going to be looking at his chart and drawing his dispositor tree. He has the Sun in Leo, so that is going to be a top planet for sure. And we will draw it like this. This is our tree, what we're drawing now for Andy Warhol. So there's the Sun in Leo at the top. It's the only planet in its own sign. That's why it's on the top line. Our next question is, are there any planets in Leo? And it appears there are. We have Mercury in Leo, and we have Venus in Leo, and we have Neptune in Leo. And if you know anything about astrology, those are the two arty planets, and creatively in Leo. So these are 3 planets in Leo, so they're going to go below the Sun in our dispositor tree. And you would write them in the order that they come in the sign. So Mercury is at 3 degrees Leo, Venus is at 23 degrees Leo, and Neptune is at 28 degrees Leo. So you write them in order because we're organized. So you've got Mercury, Venus, and Neptune in Leo. They go on the next line below the Sun. Then we say, are there any planets in Mercury's sign, Gemini or Virgo, or planets in Venus's sign, Taurus or Libra? And the answer is yes. We happen to have Jupiter's in Taurus, and Chiron's in Taurus, and Mars is in Taurus. So that is all Venus's sign. So going back to our dispositor tree, we then draw them down. Jupiter in Taurus, Chiron in Taurus, Mars in Taurus, below Venus, because Venus rules Taurus, and you draw the arrows accordingly. Then we are looking further down, we say, well, are there any planets in Sagittarius or Pisces? Yes, Saturn is in Sagittarius. Do we have any planets in Aries or Scorpio? Yes, Uranus is in Aries, and the Moon is in Aries. So we can draw those down on the 4th line of this dispositor tree. So Saturn is in Sagittarius, so it goes below Jupiter because Jupiter rules Sagittarius. Uranus and Moon are in Aries, and they go below Mars because Mars rules Aries. And we still haven't finished. So our next question is, are there any planets in Capricorn or Aquarius? No. Are there any planets in Cancer? Yes. Pluto is in Cancer. So we put that below the Moon. Pluto is there in Cancer. The Moon rules Cancer, and that is his dispositor tree. Sounds simple, doesn't it? And I've just put the arrows in colour so you can see clearly what we're doing there. So that's what you do if you have a planet in rulership. So what about if you've got any planets in mutual reception? This will be slightly different. So here we're looking at the chart for the astronaut Neil Armstrong. And our question is, are there any planets in mutual reception? And lo and behold, yes. We've got Jupiter in Cancer and the Moon in Sagittarius. So we are definitely going to put those 2 on the top line. But then I'm also going to go back to my first question. Are there any planets in rulership? And yes, the Sun is in Leo, and Mercury is in Virgo, and Saturn is in Capricorn. So those 3 are also going to be top line planets alongside the mutual reception pair. So let's look how that would come out. So on our top line, we have the Moon in Sagittarius and Jupiter in Cancer. That's the mutual reception. Then we have the 3 planets in rulership. The Sun is in Leo, Mercury is in Virgo, and Saturn is in Capricorn. So they're all 5 planets go on the top line. They're all top red line planets for him. So our next question is, are there any other planets in these planets' signs? So are there any planets in the Moon sign, Cancer, or Jupiter's sign, Sagittarius or Pisces, or the Sun sign, Leo, or Mercury sign of Gemini and Virgo, or Saturn sign of Capricorn and Aquarius? And yes, we have Pluto is in Cancer, we've got Mars in Gemini, and we have Neptune in Gemini, and we have Chiron in Taurus. So all of these 4 are going to go on the next line. So there we have Pluto is in Cancer, so it goes below the Moon. We've got Mars in Gemini, Neptune in Virgo, and Venus in Virgo, all under Mercury, because Mercury rules both Gemini and Virgo. So then we're going to say, are there any planets in these planets' signs? So are there any planets in Mars' sign, Aries or Scorpio? and in Venus's signs, Taurus or Libra. And the answer is we have Uranus in Aries and we have Chiron in Taurus. So they get drawn on the Dispositor tree. So Uranus is in Aries, that goes below Mars, and Chiron is in Taurus, so that goes below Venus. So this is the Dispositor tree for Neil Armstrong, and clearly we can see he actually has 4 separate trees. So in a way, do we have a forest? Probably, yes. Whereas Andy Warhol had 1 tree, Neil Armstrong has 4 trees in his chart. So let's look at finding any planets. Step 3, finding any planets in a chain. So this is very frequently found in a chart, and you do have to spend a bit of time looking for them. We're going to be looking at the chart here of Benedict Cumberbatch, and the question is, are there any planets in the chain? So we start with the sun. So he's got the sun in Cancer. So we say, well, where's the moon? Oh, the moon is in Aries. So then we'll say, oh, well, where's Mars? And Mars is in Virgo. They'll say, oh, well, where's Mercury? Mercury's in Leo. Oh, and therefore the sun rules Leo. So here's our chain. Sun, moon, Mars, Mercury. So when we're drawing his Dispositor tree, it's like this. They're all on the same line. Sun in Cancer, moon in Aries, Mars in Virgo, Mercury in Leo, and then the chain loops back. But these 4 planets have equal status on the top line of the Dispositor tree, and they are all red planets. Then we find out, are there planets within these signs? So, does he have planets in the sun sign of Leo, the moon sign of Cancer, Mars' sign Aries and Scorpio, or Mercury signs Gemini and Virgo? And yes, he has Saturn in Leo, Venus in Leo, and Uranus in Scorpio. So those 3 are going to go on the second line of our Dispositor tree. So here we have it. The Saturn is in Leo and Venus is in Leo, so they both go below the sun. And then Uranus is in Scorpio, so that goes below Mars because Mars rules Scorpio. Then we're going to find if there are any planets within these planets' signs. So do we have planets in Saturn sign Capricorn and Aquarius, or Venus' sign of Taurus and Libra? And we have Chiron in Taurus, Jupiter in Taurus, and Pluto in Libra. So these 3 planets will go on the next line down, and they all come under Venus. Chiron in Taurus, Jupiter in Taurus, and Pluto in Libra. Our next question is, does he have any planets in Jupiter's signs of Sagittarius or Pisces? And yes, he has Neptune in Sagittarius, so that will go on the 4th line down below Jupiter. Neptune in Sagittarius will be the absolute bottom planet there. So this is an example of how you would draw his tree. He has 1 tree again, and it's all within, because he starts off with a committee at the top. So let's have a look at the 5 types of Dispositor tree. So there are 5 distinct types of tree, and there are only 5 trees that you get. So the first is your final Dispositor tree. There is then a mutual reception tree, planet in rulership tree, single planet in rulership tree, and a committee tree. We're going to look at all of them now. So the final Dispositor tree. The example chart I have for the final Dispositor tree is the chart of Mike Brown. He's known as the Pluto killer. He's the one who was running the team that demoted Pluto down to dwarf planet. So he has a final Dispositor tree where there's actually 1 planet at the top in charge. The only planet in its own sign of dignity is Mercury in Gemini, and all the other planets fall below Mercury. So in this particular case, there is 1 very strong tree. Mercury is super strong here, and Mercury is the final Dispositor of his chart. So that is what a final Dispositor tree looks like. Another example I have for a final Dispositor tree is the one for Steve Jobs, and here he's actually got Mars as his final Dispositor right at the top of the tree, Mars in Aries, and all the other planets flow below the Mars in Aries. The next type of tree we have is a mutual reception Dispositor tree, and the example chart I have here is for Bill Gates. So what we have here is 2 planets in mutual reception. we've got Venus in Scorpio and Mars is in Libra. So they fall on the top line, and then all the other planets are below the planets in mutual reception. So this is a single mutual reception tree. You could have an example where you've got a mutual reception tree and a different type of tree as well. You don't always just have them all in the one tree when it's a mutual reception tree. And I draw your attention there to the gateway planet, which is the Sun in Scorpio, which has 3 planets below it. So remember, we call that a gateway planet as well. So in his chart, he's got Venus and Mars as equal billing in his life, and in this particular case, because we're going to talk about as Venus as the woman in his life and Mars as him, he put his wife on equal billing with himself. Next up, we have the planet in rulership dispositor tree. The example I have here is for Mark Zuckerberg, time unknown, so you ignore the house cusps. However, you don't need to know what time someone was born to be able to draw a rulership tree, which is a great thing. So he has 2 planet in rulerships trees, and he's got Mars in Scorpio on the one tree, which we would refer to as the Mars tree, and he has Venus in Taurus, which is the other planet in rulership tree, and that would be known as the Venus tree. So here again, you have this tech guy who's got Mars and Venus on the top line. They're his top planets. They would be in red, and if we're going to say Mars is him and Venus is his wife, he has given her equal billing, but she runs her life separately to his. Let's have a look at single planet in rulership dispositor tree. So it is what it says, a single planet in a rulership. So the example chart I have here is HRH Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, time unknown. So again, we don't need the time to do a dispositor tree. You can still draw it because, all right, maybe the moon would change signs, but not in this particular case because the moon is at 14 degrees of Cancer at noon. So it will not have changed signs. It will be in Cancer. And the moon in Cancer is the single planet in rulership tree. With this particular type of dispositor tree, you have a group of planets on the one side, which is what she has. She's got a mutual reception between Venus and Saturn, and everything else is grouped in there. But then there's this single planet, the moon in Cancer, by itself, separately within her chart. And that perhaps has a lot to say about her as a mother and a wife, and her nurturing and caring of obviously her children and her family, and the importance that is. And it is separate from what goes on in the mutual reception between the Venus and Saturn tree side of her life, which is really more, I would say, the public side of life that we tend to see. We as the general public are not likely to see her moon in Cancer and what goes on behind the scenes at home. So that's interesting. You can have single planets in rulership trees, and you could have more of them, and they are a little more independent planets. So they would need to have very close scrutiny within her chart as well. And then the 5th type of tree you can have, the 5th type of dispositor tree you can have is a committee dispositor tree. And this is where you have the big chain going on. The example chart I have here is now for the writer Agatha Christie, and she has a committee tree of 5 planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. 5 planets are in her chain. They are in a committee. So in the previous trees that we looked at, where you've got maybe 1 or 2 planets just on the top line that are kind of the planets that are running the show, in her case, she's got 5 planets. It's like a committee almost making the decisions for her life. And if you know anything about her writing, she wrote mystery stories where you perhaps had 5 people stuck on a desert island, and they stay overnight, and the next morning someone's dead. So there is a limited amount of people who are the usual suspects. It was the same with the Murder on the Orient Express, that movie, which was originally a book, of course. And this is her modus operandi, where she has a limited amount of people, and one person must have been the murderer. So this is how she wrote her books, and it's clearly how she works her life as well. She's got this multiple committee of planets that she can draw on and almost point the finger at first and say, oh, was Jupiter the murderer? Oh, was Saturn the murderer? And we as the reader are brought through, and each in turn, each of these options are given to us. So it's kind of interesting that she has a committee tree in her dispositor tree as well. So how to interpret a dispositor tree, and really what are we going to look for? Because there's quite a bit coming at you when you start drawing a dispositor tree. First of all, we want to know, is there a tree or is it a forest? Do you have one tree or more? Do the links also have aspects? Is there a gateway planet? And are there two sides to the personality? So the first thing is it a tree or a forest? And really, you may have one tree. It could be a mutual reception tree, it could be a committee tree, or it could be a final dispositor tree, but it's one tree where all the planets are linked together, and that is a more cohesive approach. Whereas if you have what I'm calling a forest, you could have 2, 3 or 4 or 5 more little trees, and they're all independent trees. So you could have your Sun tree and your Saturn tree and a Mars tree, and they would each be different sides of your personality. So this is very interesting to consider as well. The next thing we want to know is, do the links have aspects? And going back to Zuckerberg's chart here, we're going to say, well, which of these links, i.e. the arrows between two planets, also have aspects within the chart? And if we just take a closer look, the ones that are highlighted in yellow have an aspect. There is an aspect between Mars and Saturn, there is an aspect between Saturn and Jupiter, and there is an aspect between Jupiter and Uranus. And when we see this creates a specific chain through the links in his dispositor tree, and those planets, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter and Uranus, would require careful interpretation because they are stronger because of the aspects, not just having links. So there's a clue for an astrologer to go and look at, what do these planets represent, what do they mean in his chart, and dig a little deeper in those areas. The third thing we need to look for are the gateway planets, and this is the example again of Bill Gates's chart, where the Sun in this case is a gateway planet. The Sun in Scorpio, it has 3 planets below it, and it has a planet above it. So the question has to be, is this planet gathering information and passing it on up to the top guys, or is it throttling in some way the information coming through from Uranus, Jupiter and Pluto? So you would, in this chart, you would then have a closer look at those 3 Leo planets and decide if the Sun is going to let them through or not. There could be some other links you would want to consider there. You will check out and see if there's any aspects. But there is a gateway planet in this chart, and you need to consider that Sun in Scorpio. How is it being affected and how is it coming through in his life? Points to ponder, definitely. And then the fourth thing was, are there 2 sides because there are 2 trees? So in this example chart, we've got 2 distinct trees. I believe this is Zuckerberg. You've got the Mars tree on the one side, which stands independently of the Venus tree. And this does show generally in a chart that you've got 2 sides to the personality. You've got his public persona, which is the Mars stuff going on, and then you would have typically the private persona, which would be the Venus, Mercury, Sun and Chiron. So if there's a divide and you have more than one tree, you definitely will have 2 sides to the personality. And you could have one side that's got way more planets than the other, and that would tend to be their default mode, where they're using those energies first, and then the smaller tree is likely to be the one that we don't always see, and you've really got to know the person very well to get and dig into what's going on with those planets. You can also have 2 sides on a mutual reception that would bear consideration as well. So here again, we've got the Venus side, which is slightly smaller, and then you have the Mars side. Although it's not 2 separate trees, you do have 2 separate planets in charge of 2 main sides. And I would consider the 2 sides of these trees as well. It's very interesting that these tech guys all have Mars on the top line, and 2 of them actually have Venus up there as well, and they represent how they approach their wives, and how they brought them into their lives, whether they were equal billing or independent women. So you do see that as well on these particular guys. And then when you go back to Steve Jobs' chart, he's only got Mars at the top. He was in charge, and we don't often hear about his relationships in that way. So anyway, so these are things you're going to consider when you're looking at dispositor trees to give you some insights into what is actually being said about the tree. So some other points are that you do not need to see the chart to interpret a dispositor tree, because now that you know how to interpret these trees and you know what you're looking for flow of energy and what the planets represent in the chart, you could then see a tree such as this one, and you would actually then be able to say something about this person, that they have this committee on the one side. We can see that clearly: Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mercury. So there's quite a lot of input being brought forward, because there are really 5 planets on the top line there. We can then see the planets that have aspects to each other, and there is a distinctive connection between Saturn and Chiron, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars, and those would be the planets that would be drivers in this chart. And then in this dispositor tree as well, we see there are definitely 2 sides to this personality. So you would assume that the larger side would be the public personality, and then on the other side you've got the Venus and Libra, the Venus tree, which perhaps would say something about the romance, the love life, or the financial situation. So there are 2 definite sides to this person's personality, and you would want to say perhaps there's a public persona and then there's a private persona. And you know, many of us have it. You put on a face when you walk out the door anyway. So this particular, because we haven't seen the chart for this tree, we could at least say something about this person. And then when we do see the chart, we actually see that it's the chart for the writer Oscar Wilde, and that is his chart there. So it's got a lot of complications in there, a lot of features in this dispositor tree that clearly was shown through his writing and his life and all that he is famous for. So that is shown in this tree, where you, as an astrologer, would look into it and say, well, what is this tree saying? We've got a committee, we've got strong links, but we've got Venus going on the side there as well, which is a very interesting part of his tree. So what I'm saying here is that you don't need to see the chart to be able to interpret a dispositor tree, and that really is a practice. So I urge you to draw dispositor trees for all the charts you come across, and even today's chart or tomorrow's chart if you're working with current stuff, and see how the dispositor tree is shifting and the balance of power is shifting as different planets come to the fore and end up being on the top row. So there you have it, all about the dispositor tree. What you need to do now is go away and draw your tree, and let us know in the comments below which type of trees you have. If you have a tree, do you have a forest? Who knows what you have? And maybe some of the interesting branches that go in to make up your tree. I will share with you that I have 2 planet in rulership trees, and that is the structure of how my chart displays through dispositor tree shipdoms, maybe, yeah. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribe, or share it with anybody who would be interested. I'm Alison Price. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.